Hello Army, this is Jin. Today, my heart feels heavy as I speak to you. I'm not here with the usual smile, you know. I'm here because something has deeply disappointed me. Jungkook, someone I trusted like a brother, has done something I never imagined, and it has left me broken. Before I share everything, I want to know, where are you watching from? Leave your country or city in the comments so I can feel your support as one family while I tell you this story. I never thought I'd be sitting here pouring out my heart like this. You all know me as someone who jokes around, who brings laughter even in the darkest moments. But today, I can't pretend. I can't smile through this pain. Because what happened, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a heartbreak that came wrapped in a gift box, sealed with a ribbon of lies. It started with an invitation, a beautiful gold embossed card delivered to my apartment. You are invited to the wedding of Jungkook, and I froze. The name printed below his wasn't just familiar, it was personal. It was her, the woman I had loved quietly, deeply, and sincerely. The woman I had introduced to Jungkook as someone special in my life. My girlfriend, my heart. I remember holding that card in my hands, trembling. I thought it was a mistake, a prank, something out of a twisted drama. But it wasn't. It was real. The date, the venue, the RSVP, all real. And the worst part? I hadn't heard a word from Jungkook. No call, no message, nothing. I sat in silence for hours that day. I kept replaying every moment I had shared with her. The late night conversations, the quiet walks, the way she smiled when I sang to her. I had told Jungkook about her because I trusted him. I believe he respected that boundary, that brotherhood, that love. But he didn't. I went to the wedding. I didn't want to, but something inside me needed closure. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Maybe I thought she'd look at me and realize she'd made a mistake. Maybe I thought Jungkook would see me and feel the weight of what he'd done. But when I arrived dressed in black, I was invisible. The ceremony was beautiful, the flowers, the lights, the music, it was perfect. And there they were, standing at the altar, smiling like nothing had ever happened, like I didn't exist. I watched Jungkook take her hand, place the ring on her finger, and say vows that echoed in my ears like thunder. I watched her smile at him the way she used to smile at me. And I broke. I left before the reception. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I walked through the streets of Seoul like a ghost, replaying every moment, every word, every lie. I kept asking myself why. Why would Jungkook do this to me? Why would she choose him over me? Was I not enough? Was our love not real? That night, I cried. Not the quiet tears you wipe away in secret. I sobbed. I screamed into my pillow. I punched the walls. I felt like my soul had been ripped apart. And the worst part, I had to pretend everything was fine. Because I'm Jin. I'm the worldwide handsome. I'm the one who makes people laugh. But inside, I was dying. I didn't speak to Jungkook for weeks. I couldn't. Every time I saw his face, I saw the betrayal. Every time I heard his voice, I heard the vows he made to the woman who once told me she loved me. And when the fans asked me how I was, I smiled. I said I was okay. Because that's what we do, right? We smile through the pain. But I'm done smiling. This is my truth. This is my story. And I'm sharing it because I know someone out there has felt this kind of heartbreak. I know someone has been betrayed by someone they called family. And I want you to know you're not alone. In the next part, I'll tell you how it all began. How I met her, how our love story unfolded, and how Jungkook slowly became a part of it until he took it all away. Stay with me, ARMY. This is just the beginning. I promised you I'd tell you everything. So here it is, how it all began. Before the heartbreak, before the betrayal, before the wedding that shattered me, there was love. Pure, honest, beautiful love. And it started in the most unexpected way. It was a rainy afternoon in Seoul. I had just finished a long rehearsal and decided to stop by a small cafe near the studio. I wasn't looking for anything, just a quiet moment, a warm drink, and maybe a slice of cake. But fate had other plans. She was there, sitting by the window, sketching something in her notebook. Her hair was tucked behind one ear, and she had this peaceful aura that made the whole room feel softer. I don't know what made me walk up to her. Maybe it was the way she smiled at the barista. Maybe it was the way she looked at the rain like it was telling her a story. But I did. I walked over, introduced myself, and asked what she was drawing. She looked up, surprised, and said, "You're Jin, right?" I nodded. She smiled and said, "I was drawing you." That moment changed everything. We talked for hours about art, music, dreams, fears. She wasn't like anyone I'd met before. She didn't care about fame or fortune. She cared about feelings, about truth, about the little things that make life beautiful. I felt seen. Not as Jin from BTS, but as Kim Seokjin, the man behind the stage lights. We started meeting more often. Sometimes at that cafe, sometimes at the park, sometimes just walking through the city with no destination. She'd bring her sketchbook and I'd bring my guitar. We'd sit under trees and share pieces of ourselves. I told her things I'd never told anyone about my insecurities, my childhood, my dreams beyond music. And she listened, really listened. One night, we were watching the stars from a rooftop. She turned to me and said, "You make the world feel safe." I didn't know what to say, so I kissed her. It was gentle, hesitant, but real. And she kissed me back. That was the beginning of us. I kept her close, but private. I didn't want the world to ruin what we had. I told Jungkook about her though. He was like a younger brother to me. I trusted him. I said, "There's someone special in my life. She's not famous, but she's everything to me." He smiled and said, "I'm happy for you, Hyun." I believed him. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but she was my peace, my escape from the chaos of fame. She'd leave little notes in my bag before concerts. "You've got this. Sing with your heart. I'm proud of you." I'd read them backstage and feel like I could take on the world. I started writing songs about her. Lyrics that spoke of quiet love, of stolen moments, of the kind of connection that doesn't need words. I never released them. They were ours, just ours. Then things started to change. She became distant, canceled plans, didn't answer calls. I thought she was overwhelmed. I gave her space. I didn't push. I just waited, hoping she'd come back to me. And she did sort of, but something was different. Her eyes didn't sparkle the same way. Her laugh felt rehearsed. Her hugs were colder. I asked her if something was wrong. She said no. I asked if she still loved me. She said yes. But I knew. I felt it. something was slipping away. And then came the card. I didn't know how to process it. I kept thinking back to our moments, our promises, our love. Was it all a lie? Was I just a stepping stone? Did she ever really love me? I started replaying every interaction between her and Jungkook. The way they laughed at my jokes. The way she looked at him when I wasn't watching. The way he always asked about her. I brushed it off then. I thought it was innocent. But now, I see it differently. I feel like a fool. I gave her my heart. I gave Jungkook my trust. And they gave me silence. In the next part, I'll tell you what happened when I confronted Jungkook. What he said, what he didn't say, and how that conversation changed everything. Stay with me, ARMY. I need you now more than ever. I wasn't ready to face Jungkook. Not after what I saw, not after the wedding, but silence was eating me alive. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them smiling, laughing, holding hands like they hadn't just shattered me. I needed answers. I needed to hear it from him. So I called. He picked up on the third ring. Hyung? His voice was casual, like nothing had happened, like we were still brothers. I didn't respond right away. I was trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to let the storm inside me spill out. We need to talk, I said. He paused. Okay, when? I told him to come over that night. I cleaned my apartment like I was preparing for war. Not because I wanted it to look nice, but because I needed control over something. I rearranged the cushions, wiped the counters, lit a candle. I didn't know why. Maybe I thought it would help me stay calm. Maybe I thought it would remind me of who I was before all this. He arrived at 9:17 p.m. I remember the exact time because I stared at the clock for hours before he came. When I opened the door, he smiled. That same smile he always gave me. But this time, it felt different. It felt hollow. I didn't smile back. We sat across from each other. The silence was thick. I looked at him and said, "Why?" He blinked. "Why what?" I clenched my fist. "Why her? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you marry the woman I loved?" He looked down. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. Hyung, I didn't plan it. It just happened. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. It just happened? You fell in love with my girlfriend and it just happened? He tried to explain. Said they started talking more when I was busy. Said she felt lonely. Said he didn't mean to fall for her, but every word felt like a knife. I had introduced them. I had trusted him. I had believed in our bond, and he broke it. She was mine, I said, my voice cracking. I loved her. I told you I loved her. He nodded. I know. I'm sorry. But sorry didn't fix it. Sorry didn't erase the wedding. Sorry didn't bring back the nights I spent crying alone. I asked him if he ever thought about me, about how I'd feel. He said yes. But he still chose her. He still stood at that altar. He still smiled while I stood in the shadows. I told him I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. That something inside me had changed. That the brotherhood we had, it was broken. He didn't argue. He just sat there silent. Maybe he knew there was nothing he could say to fix it. Before he left, he said, I didn't want to hurt you. I looked at him and said, but you did. And then he was gone. I sat alone in that apartment for hours. The candle burned out. The cushions looked too perfect. The silence was louder than ever. I realized that night that some wounds don't heal with time. Some betrayals leave scars that never fade. I didn't cry. Not that night. I was too numb. too hollow. I felt like a shell of myself, like the Jin you all know had disappeared, and all that was left was a man trying to understand why love had turned into pain. In the next part, I'll tell you what happened when I saw her again. The woman who once said, "I made the world feel safe." The woman who chose Jungkook. The woman who broke my heart. I didn't plan to see her again. After the wedding, after the confrontation with Jungkook, I told myself I was done. I needed to move on. I needed to protect what was left of my heart. But life has a cruel way of forcing you to face the very things you're trying to forget. It was a charity event, one of those elegant, high-profile gatherings where celebrities mingle, cameras flash, and everyone pretends they're fine. I wasn't in the mood, but I had committed months ago. I thought I could show up, smile for the press, donate quietly, and leave unnoticed. But fate had other plans. She was there, standing near the entrance, dressed in a soft lavender gown that shimmered under the lights. Her hair was pinned up, her eyes scanning the room, and when they landed on me, everything stopped. The noise, the crowd, the music, it all faded. It was just her and me, locked in a moment that felt like a lifetime. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave. Another part wanted to walk up and demand answers. But I stood still, frozen in a storm of emotions. She walked toward me slowly, like she wasn't sure if I'd stay or disappear. When she reached me, she smiled. That same smile that once made my world feel safe. "Hi," she said softly. I nodded. "Hi." There was a long pause, the kind that holds 1,000 words. She looked at me, searching my face for something, maybe forgiveness, maybe understanding, maybe the man she once loved. I didn't give her any of it. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said. "I didn't expect to see you ever again," I replied. She looked down, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her clutch. "I wanted to talk to you after the wedding, but I didn't know how." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't know how? You could have started with, 'I'm sorry.' Or maybe I made a mistake. Or maybe just, 'I loved you once.'" She flinched. "I did love you, Jing. I still care about you." I shook my head. "You don't marry someone else if you still care." She tried to explain, said things got complicated, said she felt torn, said Jungkook was there when I wasn't, that he listened when I was busy, that he made her feel wanted when I was drowning in schedules and rehearsals. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I had given her everything I could, that I had carved out time in a life that barely had any, that I had chosen her over sleep, over rest, over sanity. But I didn't. I just stood there, letting her words wash over me like cold rain. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "But you did," I replied. "You both did." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I wish things were different." "So do I whispered. We stood in silence again. The crowd moved around us, oblivious to the storm brewing between two broken hearts. I looked at her one last time and said, "I hope you're happy. I really do. But I can't be part of your story anymore." And then I walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see her cry. I didn't want to see her reach out. I didn't want to feel the pull of a love that had already died. I just wanted to breathe, to heal, to find the pieces of myself that had been scattered across a wedding aisle and a broken promise. That night, I sat on my balcony, staring at the stars. I thought about the rooftop where we once kissed. I thought about the songs I never released. I thought about the man I used to be when she was mine, and I cried. Not because I missed her, but because I missed who I was with her. In the next part, I'll tell you how this heartbreak changed me, how I started seeing the world differently, how I began to rebuild myself not as Jin from BTS, but as Kim Seokjin, the man who learned to survive betrayal. After seeing her again, something inside me shifted. I thought it would reopen the wound, make it bleed all over again. But instead, it gave me clarity, closure, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. I realized I had been holding on to a version of her that no longer existed. A version of us that had died long before the wedding, and now it was time to let go. But letting go isn't easy, especially when the pain is tied to memories that once made you feel alive. I had to relearn how to be alone, how to wake up without checking my phone for her messages, how to walk through Seoul without expecting to bump into her at our favorite cafe, how to sing without imagining her in the front row, smiling at me like I was her whole world. I started journaling, not the kind of journaling you do for interviews or fan letters, real journaling. Raw thoughts, ugly truths, pages filled with anger, sadness, confusion. I wrote about the betrayal, about Jungkook, about her, about myself. I wrote until my hand cramped and the ink ran dry, and then I wrote some more. I also started spending more time alone, not in a lonely way, but in a healing way. I'd go on long walks at night when the city was quiet and the stars were out. I'd sit by the Han River and just breathe. No cameras, no fans, no expectations. Just me and the silence. Music helped too. I didn't write songs for release, I wrote them for survival. Melodies that captured my heartbreak, lyrics that spoke of betrayal, of lost love, of finding strength in solitude. I'd play them in my apartment, sometimes crying, sometimes just staring at the ceiling. They were my therapy, my way of processing everything. I also started reconnecting with myself, the Jin before fame, the Jin who loved cooking, who laughed at dad jokes, who found joy in the simplest things. I cooked meals for one. I watched old movies. I read books I'd forgotten I owned. I reminded myself that I was more than the heartbreak, more than the betrayal, more than the man who got left behind. And slowly, I began to heal. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to stand again, enough to smile without forcing it, enough to look in the mirror and see someone worth loving. I didn't cut Jungkook out of my life entirely. We still had work, still had BTS, still had millions of fans who saw us as brothers. But I kept my distance. I was polite, professional, but guarded. The trust was gone, and I wasn't ready to rebuild it. As for her, I never saw her again after that night. No texts, no calls, no accidental run-ins. It was like the universe knew I needed space, and I was grateful for that. I started opening up to the members more. Not about everything, but enough. Enough to let them know I was hurting. Enough to let them support me in their own quiet ways. Namjoon would leave books on my desk. Yoongi would send me playlists. Taehyung would drag me out for late night drives. Jimin would cook with me. Hobi would make me laugh when I didn't want to. And Jungkook, he stayed silent. I didn't hate him. I wanted to. But I didn't. I just couldn't understand him. And maybe I never will. In the next part, I'll tell you about the gift. The one that broke my heart, the one that made everything worse, the one that reminded me that even after betrayal, pain has layers. I didn't expect anything from Jungkook after the wedding. Not a message, not an apology, not a gesture. I had already accepted that our bond was fractured, maybe beyond repair. But then, a package arrived at my door. No note, no sender. Just a sleek black box with a silver ribbon. I knew instantly who it was from. I stared at it for hours. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to feel anything. But curiosity is cruel. It whispers when you're trying to forget. So I untied the ribbon, lifted the lid, and found something that made my heart stop. Inside was a framed sketch. Her sketch. The one she drew of me the day we met at the cafe. The day our story began. It was the same drawing my face, soft lines, gentle shading, eyes full of hope. But this time, there was something different. A small inscription at the bottom corner. Thank you for loving me. I couldn't breathe. It was like someone had taken my memories, wrapped them in glass, and handed them back to me with a dagger underneath. That sketch wasn't just art. It was a symbol of everything we had, everything we lost. And now it was a gift from the man who took her away. I wanted to smash it. I wanted to throw it against the wall and watch it shatter into 1,000 pieces. But I didn't. I just sat there holding it, crying silently. Because that sketch reminded me of who I was before the pain, before the betrayal, before the wedding. I don't know why Jungkook sent it. Maybe he thought it would bring closure. Maybe he wanted to remind me that she once loved me. Maybe he wanted to say sorry without saying the words. But it didn't feel like closure. It felt like reopening a wound that had barely begun to heal. I placed the sketch on my desk, not because I wanted to see it every day, but because I needed to face it. I needed to confront the truth. That love isn't always forever, that people change, that even the purest connections can be broken by silence and selfishness. That gift haunted me. Every morning, I'd glance at it and feel a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, nostalgia. I'd remember the way she looked at me when she drew it, the way her fingers moved across the page, the way she smiled when she showed it to me. And I'd wonder, was any of it real? I started writing again, not songs, letters I never sent to her, to Jungkook, to myself. I poured out everything I couldn't say aloud, the pain, the confusion, the longing, the rage. I filled pages with words that bled from my soul, and slowly those letters became my therapy. I also started talking to a counselor. I know that might surprise some of you. Jin, the strong one. Jin, the funny one. Jin, the one who always lifts others up. But even I needed help. Even I needed someone to guide me through the darkness. And it helped. It really did. I learned that healing isn't linear. That some days you feel okay, and others you feel like you're drowning. That grief comes in waves. That forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. I haven't forgiven Jungkook. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm learning to live without the anger, to breathe without the bitterness, to smile without pretending. That sketch still sits on my desk. I haven't moved it, I haven't hidden it, because it's part of my story now. A painful chapter, yes, but also a reminder of how deeply I can love, how deeply I can feel, how deeply I can survive. In the next part, I'll tell you about the fans, about how your love saved me, about how ARMY became my light when everything else felt dark. I've said this before, and I'll say it again without Army. I don't know where I'd be. You've seen me smile on stage, laugh in interviews, tease the members, and sing with my whole heart. But behind all that, there were days when I felt like I was falling apart. And it was your love that kept me standing. After the wedding, after the sketch, after the silence, I felt lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was hollow. I'd walk into rehearsals and feel like a stranger in my own skin. I'd hear my voice in recordings and wonder if it still belonged to me. I'd look at the members and feel a distance I couldn't explain. But then I'd open my phone and see your messages, your comments, your edits, your letters, your art. You didn't know what I was going through, but somehow you knew I needed you. You reminded me that I was loved, that I mattered, that I wasn't alone. I remember one night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the wedding in my head, the vows, the smiles, the silence. I opened Twitter just to distract myself. And there, it was a fan from Brazil had posted a drawing of me surrounded by stars with the caption, "Even the brightest stars have dark nights, but they always shine again." I cried, not because of the drawing, but because someone, somewhere, believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. That's what Army does. You lift us when we're down. You see us when we feel invisible. You love us even when we are broken. I started reading more fan letters, not just the ones curated by staff, but the ones buried deep in hashtags and threads. Stories of how BTS helped you through depression, heartbreak, loneliness, and I realized we're all healing together. We're all carrying pain. We're all searching for light. So I began to write back, not literally, but through my music, through my performances, through every smile I gave on stage, even when it hurt. I wanted you to know that your love wasn't wasted, that your support wasn't unnoticed, that your belief in me was the reason I kept going. I also started engaging more online, posting silly selfies, dropping random comments, sharing bits of my day, not because I was okay, but because I wanted to stay connected. I wanted to feel your presence. I wanted to remind myself that I wasn't alone. And you responded with warmth, with humor, with love. You made me laugh when I didn't want to. You made me feel seen when I felt invisible. You made me feel like Jin again. There was one moment that really hit me. We were performing in Japan, and during the encore, I looked out into the crowd and saw a fan holding a sign that said, "Jin, your smile saved my life." I froze. I stared at that sign for what felt like forever. And then I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I wanted to give that fan the same gift they gave me, hope. You saved me, Army. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet love, with consistent support, with unwavering belief. You reminded me that I'm more than my pain, more than my heartbreak, more than the man who lost someone he loved. You reminded me that I'm Jin, and that's enough. In the next part, I'll tell you about the moment I almost gave up. The moment I thought about walking away from everything. From music, from BTS, from you. But something stopped me. Something pulled me back. There was a night I'll never forget. Not because something dramatic happened, but because everything inside me collapsed. I was alone in my apartment, lights off, phone face down, music silent. The world outside was moving, but I wasn't. I was stuck in a moment that felt endless. And in that moment, I thought about walking away from everything. From BTS, from music, from the spotlight, from the version of myself that had been built for others. I had just finished a performance in Busan. The crowd was incredible. ARMY was loud, loving, beautiful. But backstage, I felt nothing. I smiled, waved, bowed, did everything I was supposed to do, but inside I was numb. I kept thinking, why am I still doing this? What's the point if I'm not whole? I got back to my hotel and stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't eat, I didn't shower, I didn't speak. I just lay there wondering if it was time to let go, to disappear. To stop pretending I was okay, I thought about leaving a note. Something simple, something vague, something that wouldn't make people worry too much. But then I remember you. I remember the fan who said my smile saved her life, the one who held up the sign in Japan. I remember the messages from ARMY in Indonesia, in Brazil, in Germany, in Korea, telling me that I was their comfort, their strength, their light. I remember the drawing, the letters, the edits, the songs you made for me. And I cried, not because I was weak, but because I realized I wasn't alone. I had you. I had millions of hearts beating with mine. I had a family that stretched across oceans and languages and time zones. I had a reason to stay. So I got up, I walked to the mirror and looked at myself. My eyes were tired, my face was pale, my heart was heavy, but I was still here, still breathing, still fighting. I whispered to myself, "You're not done yet," and I believed it. The next morning, I called Namjoon. I didn't say much, just, "Hyung, I need you." He came over without asking questions. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, "You don't have to be strong all the time, you just have to be honest." That hit me hard. I started opening up more to the members, to my counselor, to myself. I stopped pretending. I let the pain speak. I let the healing begin. And slowly, I found my way back to music, not as an escape, but as a home. I wrote a song that night. It's not released. Maybe it never will be. But it's mine. It's called Stay Because. And it's about you, about ARMY, about the love that pulled me back from the edge, about the reason I'm still here. I want you to know something. When you send a message, when you hold up a sign, when you scream my name at a concert, you're not just cheering. You're saving. You're healing. You're reminding me that I matter. I almost walked away, but you held me close. In the next part, I'll tell you about the moment I found peace. The moment I forgave, not for them, but for me. The moment I chose to live again, not as someone broken, but as someone reborn. Forgiveness is a strange thing. People talk about it like it's a gift you give someone else. Like it's about letting them off the hook. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of what they did. It's about choosing peace over pain. And for me, it took time, a lot of time. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to forgive Jungkook, or her, or the silence. It was a slow process, a painful one. I had to sit with my anger. I had to feel it fully. I had to let it burn through me until it had nothing left to destroy. And then, in the ashes, I found something unexpected clarity. I started asking myself questions, not about them, but about me. Why did I hold on so tightly to the pain? Why did I replay the betrayal over and over like a movie I couldn't stop watching? Why did I let their choices define my worth? And the answer was simple. I was afraid. Afraid that if I let go of the pain, I'd lose the last piece of what we had. Afraid that if I forgave, it would mean what they did was okay. But it wasn't, and it never will be. Forgiveness doesn't mean approval. It means release. So I began to release. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped analyzing Jungkook's every move. I stopped looking for signs, for explanations, for closure. I accepted that I might never get the answers I wanted. And that was okay. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you create. I started meditating. Not the fancy kind with incense and chants. Just quiet moments in the morning, breathing, listening to my heartbeat, reminding myself that I'm alive, that I'm here, that I'm enough. I also started writing again, not letters this time, not songs, just thoughts, reflections, truths. I wrote about forgiveness, about healing, about the strength